Hello and welcome to this episode of the Real Relationships Show. I'm Deb Morgan, the Real Relationships expert, and I'm joined today by a special guest, Mike Iamele of Mike Iamele LLC. Mike, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you, Deb. Thanks so much for having me.
You're very welcome. Now, I'm quite fascinated by your story, and I'm hoping that we can unpack it a little bit during the course of this interview. But first of all, tell me, you had a life-threatening illness, which kind of led you to where you are now.
Yeah.
What was the precursor to that illness? Were you in a relationship? Were you married? What was your situation back then?
Sure. So I was single. I was dating women at the time. Nothing too serious at that moment. Just dating a little bit. And I was working in public relations. So I had a very fast-paced job. I would work very long hours. I would go out most nights of the week. There was always some work events, a lot of drinking. And I woke up one day in my mid-20s and I was vomiting blood. And that was understandably very, very scary. I didn't know what was wrong with me. But a week later, when it hadn't stopped and I wasn't able to eat, I went to the hospital. I was given fluids. I went through a whole bunch of tests. And this went on for about 2 to 3 months, where I was vomiting blood almost daily. There was a moment where I went into the office to work and I actually had an accident and shit my pants at work as an adult. And it was so mortifying. And I knew something was wrong with me and I was afraid I was going to die. And so I had been diagnosed with a few different things. But while all this was going on, I started pursuing every type of alternative therapy because I thought, I've just got to try anything. And so I lived with 2 roommates at the time. One of them was in a relationship and wasn't there very often. And the other was a guy I knew from college who we weren't very close, but we live together now as of recent. And he was on residency. And so he had kind of irregular hours. And he also knew the medical system pretty well. And so just by default, he began taking care of me. I couldn't leave the house in many cases. I couldn't drive myself places. I had to get to the hospital. There got to be a point where I didn't have the energy to cook for myself or be able to really care for myself. And so through this process of him taking care of me, about 2 months into it, I realized I felt something for him. And to give you some context, that felt strange because at the time I had never been with a man and to my conscious knowledge, never been interested in a man. And this didn't feel sexual. It didn't even feel romantic, but it felt like something's happening here. And, I'm thinking like, oh my God, I'm afraid I'm going to die. Is this just like a human within proximity? And like, feel like I didn't know what to think at this point. And so any other point in my life, I probably would have brushed this under the rug and just not thought about it and let it pass. But I was in this moment of doing radical therapy where I was writing handwritten letters to every member of my family, telling them everything I never said. Like I was just trying anything to heal. And I thought, I can't suppress anything. Like blood is coming up. Something is being suppressed. I need to just speak up. And so one day I got up the nerve and I just said, Garrett, which is his name. I said, Garrett, I feel something here. And I don't even know how to describe it. It's not romantic, but I feel some connection. I want to just put it out there. And I didn't know if he was going to want to punch me in the face. I didn't know what to expect from this experience. And I'm fortunate that Garrett is the most thoughtful person in the world. And so he said, okay, let me sit with this. Let me think about this. And we went back and forth, emails and wrote letters to one another. We had conversations. And of course, today I'm condensing months and months into just a few minutes. But we ultimately decided that we wanted to spend a few years or spend time exploring if this relationship could work. And so we still dated women while we were not exclusive with one another. But we began to explore if we could have an intimate relationship or if we even needed an intimate relationship and what that looked like. And there's a lot more to this story, but long story short, we are married today. We've been together now for almost a decade and we're very happy.
That's incredible. And I want to go back to that moment where you said, Garrett, I think I'm feeling something towards you. Because despite everything that was going on for you at that time, you're in a position where you've got a life-threatening illness. You're thinking you're going to die. As you said, you're trying all sorts of radical therapies. And yet you have put yourself out there in perhaps one of the most vulnerable ways a man possibly can. Particularly, as you've said, up until then you'd identified as straight. You still didn't really know what that was. How did that feel, the sort of build up to that? What was going on in your mind at that time?
Lots of things. I think that courage, people say this all the time, but it's not this absence of fear. So certainly I had a lot of fear. And I think if I wasn't in this place already of doing things I was afraid of to heal myself, I probably wouldn't have been in such a space to be able to speak up. But this had become a daily practice for me because when you feel like you have nothing left to lose, you can really kind of put yourself on the line. And I think at the same time, what I wasn't consciously aware of is the fact that Garrett was and still is the safest person I had ever known. And so some part of me intuitively felt really safe that even if he didn't reciprocate, I was still going to be safe. And so there was something about this. And as I kind of look back on why I fell in love with him and what makes our relationship work, that space of vulnerability. I mean, I've never been safe to be that vulnerable with a person ever in my life. And so it doesn't surprise me now that I did fall in love with him and the physical caught up, and it took years, but we got there. But that it was this emotional experience first because there was extreme vulnerability and extreme safety.
Wow. And do you know what? That also reminds me of things I talk to my clients about, where a relationship built on connectivity, built on trust, built on emotion is so much stronger than one that's built on sex. Now, in a standard heterosexual relationship, so many people say, oh, it was love at first sight, and within days, clothes were being ripped off, and that's it. And we are fed this image that a real passionate relationship is about having wild, abandoned sex all of the time, and it's that sort of bodice ripping sex that we read about. But, and please tell me if I'm wrong here, but my personal experience and what it sounds like you're saying, and certainly the experience of some of my clients, is when you actually put the connectivity first, it is so much more passionate because you don't just have that physical connection and the physical lust, if you like, but you have that mental connection, which is missing in so many relationships. And was it similar for you?
Oh, without a doubt. It reminds me, just the other day, we were out with a friend who was single and she was talking to us about attraction. And I said, I don't think about how attractive or not attractive I am. I can't imagine Garrett being attracted to anyone more than me. And I didn't mean it conceitedly. I just meant it honestly. And so I said, Garrett, what do you think about that? And he said, oh, without a doubt, physical attraction plus connection creates a crazy level of attraction,
Absolutely.
like beyond words. And it's not even like you can compare yourself to anybody else because there is nobody else. It's you. It's your soul. It's who you are as a human being.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. You couldn't have said it better. It is absolutely your soul connection. But I'm interested because that was then. You had a lot of working out of things to do. But you didn't stop there. You kept notes of your journey, didn't you, through your life-threatening illness and sort of your life path, your therapies. What happened? Because this is incredible.
So, yes, when I was that sick, I knew I had to leave my job because something was wrong here and I needed to start something new. And so I went through the process. I gave a year's notice. Never recommend anyone listening do that, but I was an owner of this company, so I felt like it was the right thing. And I ended up, about the date that I was leaving my job, we decided to tell our families. We had been together now for about a year and a half. This was serious. And so we told our families. And I started a blog talking about some of my experiences. Not my relationship yet, but some of my, I was successful at a young age. I got sick. Success isn't what it's cracked up to be. And within 3 months, a publisher reached out and offered me a book deal. And right, exactly. I'm like, does this happen to people? Okay, yeah, if you're going to pay me, I will happily keep writing. So I wrote this book. And as I was telling my story in the book, the publisher really wanted me to talk about my relationship because this was such an important part of my story. And I said, okay. So I wrote about it. I turned in that manuscript. And then I thought, oh, shit. Like, I have to tell people in my life. I mean, they can't find out on the shelves of Barnes & Noble. I have to tell people about this. And so I thought, well, I'm a writer. I have this blog that's gotten a little bit popular, but, not hugely. So I can tell a few people, they can all talk behind my back. I don't have to deal with that mess. And then when they come to me, I don't have to clean up everybody's emotions. This is so much safer. And so I wrote a blog post about this, thinking, okay, I'll tell a few people in my life. I went to bed that night, and when I woke up the next morning, 100,000 people had shared it. And so this was completely overwhelming. I cannot describe to you the feeling of millions of people talking about your sex life, but it was, I had thousands of emails in my inbox. I had phone calls from NPR, Huffington Post, Yahoo News wanting to talk to me about this. And this was 8 years ago now, so the dialogue on sexual fluidity and pansexuality was a little bit different than it is today. And it was really interesting because I clearly did not write it expecting this. And so I had these people asking me to defend a sexuality that, quite frankly, I wasn't clear about. And so I'm in the middle of this mess. And believe me, my therapist got a phone call that week. And I just really shut down and decided I didn't want to be public about this. I didn't want to continue talking about this. I felt like I did good, interesting work. And yet any interview I was on, they only wanted to talk about this. And it took me years, really. Like I said, it's been 8 years now. So years to come to a place where that feels integrated and as a part of my story. And I feel like I can claim the narrative of who I am and not allow the world to objectify me. But at a time where my sexuality was still so fragile, it was really difficult for me to do that.
Yes. And how did that impact on your relationship, and how did Garrett take it?
Well, I think that one blessing of my life is that every stress test in our relationship has brought us closer together and taught us tools to come together. And I think that in some ways it accelerated our relationship because there was, just like getting really sick accelerated our relationship. Yeah. And so, I needed immense support and we needed to talk with one another. We had instances where Garrett had a stalker. There was a little bit of a stalking situation. There is right now a novel written about our story. There was a play in the works. It got really strange. And so to be in this space and realize we're just hanging out on the couch watching a movie together. We're just a normal little couple, to ground one another and remember what's real and what's us was so important. And, I don't ever wish that on anyone, but looking back, I am grateful for it because it really showed me that I could have got caught up in creating this image and this big Instagram account or whatever of my relationship or write other books. I was offered book deals. And I said, nope, none of that's from me. This is an actual relationship and I'm not selling it or profiting off of true love.
Wow, fantastic morals there as well, Mike. It's incredible. But you're right, it's this roller coaster. It's so easy to get caught up in it. And the fact that you turned around and said, actually, no, this is my relationship. And you prioritized your relationship, which I think so many people forget. They get caught up in the potential and no doubt the potential of lots of people finding out about it, book deals, etc. leads to fame, leads to more money, leads to wealth, which so many people pursue these days. But at what cost? And you, I think quite rightly have said, I'm not prepared for my relationship to be the victim of this and to be the casualty of it, which is absolutely incredible. So all of that happened. It brought you closer together in the stress times. So where does that leave you now? Because your story is out there. It's very public. What is next for Mike and Garrett?
Oh, well, lots of things. Hopefully, it was really great. I've only been back doing podcasts and stuff for a good 6 months now. And so a friend of mine in public relations really said, Mike, your voice needs to get back out there. Your story is important and the world has really changed. And so that's been really beautiful. But, we have hands down the best engagement story you've ever heard of no planning or intention of my own. So I tell you with certainty, I did not mean for this to happen. In fact, it was a complete disaster. And I'm happy to tell it if we have a few minutes. Yes, please do.
I was going to ask. Tell me the story.
Yes. So, even though we hadn't figured out the physical side of our relationship, I knew I wanted to marry Garrett about 6 months after we got together. And I knew I wanted to marry him because of one particular night. So I can tell you the exact moment. It was the first time I had left the house to go to a party. I was just feeling well enough to be out for a few hours. And it was a Christmas party in a section of Boston that is notoriously bad for parking. There is just no parking there. It's all cobblestone streets. And there was a snowstorm that night. And Garrett was on residency at the hospital. And he had to work until midnight. He had to work this like 16-hour day. And so I go to the party by myself. And it's about 1 a.m. and I'm just getting ready to leave the party and take the bus home. And I look over and Garrett is sitting alone in the corner in his scrubs. And I went over to him and said, "What are you doing here? Why would you drive across the city in this horrible area in a snowstorm and try to find parking here? Like, go home. It's been 16 hours. You need to sleep." And he said, "Well, you're right. I worked a really long day and I was exhausted. And I was in my car about to drive home. And I realized if I got home, you would have to take the bus home and you'd probably be a half hour later and I would fall asleep. And I wouldn't get to see you tonight. And so I wanted something for me today. And so I drove across the city and found parking so I could just sit alone in the corner with one drink and watch you tell stories. Because I could watch you tell stories all night and then I get to drive you home and see you tonight." And I thought, well, shit, I have to marry this man. So I decided at that moment that I was marrying him. And I knew where I was going to do it. This balcony on the Amalfi Coast of Italy overlooking the Mediterranean Ocean. Because Garrett had never been to Europe. And I said, the first time he sees the Mediterranean, I'm proposing. And so I was just starting a new business. I did not have thousands of dollars I could hide and be secretive about. So it took me 4 years. But 4 years later, I got enough money together. I asked him to take a week off of work. I didn't have enough to pay for the hotels and everything, but I thought, I have 4 months. I'll figure this out. And I started planning this trip. And I secretly went down to his family hometown and asked for their blessing. I pretended I was at a yoga retreat somewhere else, but I secretly went down there, and he almost caught me because I knew he was going to check the flight times, try to pick me up at the airport. And anyway, somehow I lied my way out of that. The perfect start to this engagement. And so anyway, the day of comes, and he didn't know anything. He didn't know if we were flying or driving. He didn't know. I wouldn't tell him anything. I said, "You know what? Plan for both, but I wouldn't put a knife in your carry-on, so just plan whatever you need to." And so the one thing he said he needed to know was about his passport, because in real life, no one ever needs their passport in everyday life. However, Garrett was starting to teach at a university the day we were leaving and needed his passport for tax reasons. And so I could not believe it. He was going to have it on him. And I was like, oh my God. So he came home and said, "Mike, just tell me one thing. I don't want to bring my passport and then lose it. Will I need my passport?" I said, I just got to commit at this point. So I said, no, you know what? You're not going to need it. I don't want you to bring it and then lose it. Why don't you go put it away? Go pack the car. So he went downstairs and I just sprinted into that bedroom, grabbed that passport, zipped it up as he was coming up the stairs. I said, "Oh, no, not that car. I mean the Uber I just ordered." And so we get in an Uber to the airport, and I am so psychotic that I knew we could not get dropped off at Terminal E. Because in Boston, E is international, and I couldn't let him know that we were going international. So I was studying the blueprint of the airport, and there was a passageway from C to E, so I knew we could get dropped off at C and I can get through. And C is the airline JetBlue, which we fly often. And so we get dropped off there. I go to the kiosk, and I think, oh, shit. And he said, "What is it? What would you forget?" I said, "Just hold this." And I gave him his passport. And he said, "Why would you bring your passport?" "Wait, this is my passport." I said, yeah. "Hold this." And I gave him 3 books on Rome. And he said, "What's going on?" I said, "When you get up tomorrow morning, you'll be in Rome. We're going to Rome tonight." And so we get over, and I told him, because I had spent a few summers in Italy, I said, "We can do the touristy thing. We can do the local thing. This is your trip. You plan whatever you want. The only rule I have is halfway through the week, we're going to go to the Amalfi Coast. Other than that, you do what you want." So we get to Italy, and it is supposed to rain every day we are there. But it didn't. It was sunny and beautiful. I thought, somebody is looking out for me. This is a miracle. Okay, beautiful. But everywhere we went, we brought our raincoat and our umbrella just in case, and we never needed it. We were lugging it all week. So finally, the Saturday comes, the day we're supposed to go to the Amalfi Coast, and we cannot miss this train because it's the last train of the day. If we miss it, we're going to lose our tickets, the place we have in Rome. We have no place in Rome, the place we have down there. It's like thousands of dollars we're losing. I cannot miss this train. And so I said, "Okay, Garrett, what do you want to do your last day?" He said, "The one thing I could not leave Rome without doing is going to the Vatican. I just have to go." And I thought, okay, on a Saturday, great. This will be a disaster, but we'll try to make this work. No big deal. So finally, it's going to be a sunny day. Our first sunny day. And we said, okay, let's put the umbrellas and the raincoat away. We finally don't have to lug them. We go over to the Vatican, and they say it's going to be about a 2-hour wait to get in. And I said, oh, they always exaggerate. Don't worry about it. They're trying to scare you. Let's just get in line. We'll be fine. It starts downpouring. So now it is raining on us here, and I have to pee. And now I really have to pee, and I'm covered in rain, but I cannot get out of this line because I do not want to lose my spot. And Garrett starts getting hungry. And we have to buy a €10 poncho just to wrap around the camera case because it's getting soaked. We're completely drenched. And we're waiting. Finally, it's been 2.5 hours. We are 3 people from the front of the line. And Garrett says, we only have about 15 minutes to be in there. Let's just get out of line. It's not worth spending €40 for 15 minutes. And so after 2.5 hours of standing in the rain, we get out of line. So now all I want to do is pee, just so badly I've got to pee. So I am running around to restaurants saying, you get grab a bite to eat, I will pee, we'll be good. And sometimes in Vatican City, people can be particular. So it was 12:45. No restaurant is opening until 1. And I said, I don't even care about food, just please let me pee. Nobody will let me in to pee. I said, fine, I don't care. Like, let's just take the metro, we're going back to our hotel, and we'll pee there, we'll grab something to eat at the train station. Let's just get there. So we go over to the metro. And there were people standing outside in the rain. And so I asked somebody, what's going on here? And they said, oh, there's a delay between these 3 stops. The only stops we needed. I said, oh my God, we can't do this. Now we have to walk home. So we've got a little map, and it is disintegrating in the rain. We can't even read this map. We're trying to read the street signs, but they are etched in Roman letters into the building. And the downpouring, you can't even see them. Long story short, the bridge we wanted went one way. The bridge we took went a different way.
Oh, dear.
We are now further away. And we start bickering. And I think all I can think is, I'm not doing this. I am not proposing today. I spent thousands of dollars on this. I spent years of planning. Like, this is the worst thing that could happen. This is not happening for me. And so we're bickering. I have to pee so badly. Hungry has turned to hangry for Garrett. And he's just, how that goes. And long story short, before I left, a Hindu friend of mine told me to pray to the Hindu god Ganesha. And so I said, okay, she sent me a prayer. I did this prayer. I didn't think anything of it. We're in the middle of Rome, bickering a little bit, and I look up and there's a mural of Ganesha right there in the middle of Rome. I said, okay, obstacles here for a reason. Pay attention, Mike. So long story short, I remember this piazza. Garrett remembers that piazza. We find our way back to the hotel. We get in there, we pee, we grab a power bar, and head over to the metro station to go to the train station. I put my weekly pass through and go through the turnstile. Garrett goes to do it. He says, oh my God, it was in my front pocket. It's disintegrated from the rain. So I said, okay, I can't get back through now because I'm on this side of it. It's a busy train station. Nobody here is helping an American. Let me try to yell to you to get the machine from Italian to English so that we can get, this. So I finally am screaming across the turnstile. He figures it out, puts it in. It doesn't work. I said, we have like one more shot at this. So he puts it in, it finally works. So we take that metro over to Roma Termini, which is the main train station in Italy. There are 40 trains going at any given time. Very busy train station. We have 5 minutes. We haven't eaten, but it doesn't matter at this point. We have 5 minutes. I said, Garrett, here's where they're going to post the platform. I'm going to make sure what we printed out offline is okay, or if I have to exchange it for a physical ticket. So I get back. There's 2 minutes until our train leaves. Nothing is posted. And it doesn't say delayed. It just, it's faded out where it's supposed to say our platform. I'm like, oh my God, the board must be broken. And so I said, Garrett, our only option now is to go through security, run up and down all of the trains, and just hope to God we can find our train. And so we get through, run up and down all the trains. We are frantic at this point. Can't find our train. And I am freaking out because we are there. Our train is right there. We cannot miss this train. So I run over to an attendant and I said, please, please, please call this in. What track number is it? He's like, I think you're confused. I said, I am not confused. Please call it in. He called it in and said, oh my God, your train is leaving in less than a minute. Run. So we are sweaty. We are covered in water. We have all of our bags for all of Italy. And we are sprinting down this train platform. And I kid you not, I wish I were exaggerating this part. We jumped onto the train and within 10 seconds, the train took off. So we made it. So I am breathing heavy. I am exhausted. I am hungry. And my only thought is, there is no way I'm proposing today. And then Garrett turned to me and said, it's so weird. For everything that went wrong today, you would have thought we would have turned on each other, but we didn't. We worked together as a team. Isn't that weird? And I thought, shit, now I have to propose today.
Mm-hmm.
So we took a 3-hour train ride down to the Amalfi Coast. We got out, and God knows it's still raining. We had to walk a mile from the train station to our hotel. But at this point, I didn't care. Like,
Yeah.
it was on. This was happening. I had no plan. My speech was shot to shit. I wasn't saying what I thought I was saying. So I said, I am just going to wing this and be really vulnerable and authentic. And so we check into the hotel. We put our bags down, and I said, hey, Garrett, do you want to go check out the rooftop? Who in their right mind would want to check out their rooftop in this rainstorm? But whatever. So Garrett's like, I guess
Literally,
so.
you can get away with it.
Sure. So we get out there. At this point, it's only drizzling. And I said, hey, Garrett, go check out that castle that you totally can't see in the distance because it's covered in fog. And he turns around as I get down one knee. And I just figure I'm winging this. And he turned back around and I said to him, you know what, Garrett? I woke up this morning and I planned on proposing to you. And then everything went to shit. Everything that could have went wrong. And I thought, screw this. I'm not proposing. Like, I have spent thousands of dollars on this. I have spent years of planning. I have one shot to get this right, and I'm not wasting it today, right? I have one shot at this. This is not going to be the day. I'll wait till another day. And then everything did go wrong. And we started working together as a team. And I realized I don't just have one shot at this. I have a million shots at this. Because every day for the rest of my life, I'm just waking up, asking myself if I'm still game to do this, and asking you to love me. Today is just one of those days. So I brought you to the most beautiful place that I know that could potentially rival your beauty to ask you, will you marry me? And he said, maybe. No, he said yes. And then I showed him a picture of me and his mom date stamped and it said Cheryl approved to say, I went down there and asked for their blessing.
Wonderful. Wow, Mike, what an absolutely incredible story, full of ups and downs, as all great love stories are. And to go from where you started to where you are now is absolutely incredible. And I'd just like to ask, what advice would you give to a young man, young boy, in the same position as you? And my son is 16 years old. Mm-hmm. He's been questioning his sexuality for a while and has come out quite openly as gay in the last 2 years. And that's absolutely fantastic. But I know of so many other people who have teenage boys, have sons in their 20s, who really struggle with it. And what advice would you give, to the individual who was questioning their sexuality, but also perhaps to the parent or the family to support them through that?
Yeah, I think that we are doing such a better job today of sharing representation and happy, healthy queer relationships out there. I think there's a lot of fear and, unfortunately, especially with the AIDS epidemic, there's been a lot of struggle and fear and prejudice around things, and a lot of people feeling like love isn't possible for them. And some people were explicitly told that years ago, which is really, really sad. So I think that it's one reason that I'm, here today is to be able to share stories and share those possibilities. And I think that, for young queer people to seek out and look for stories that feel empowering to you and come out on your own timeline. It happens in stages. You don't have to do it to 100,000 people all at once. You can do it to yourself in small stages. You can tell a close friend and make sure that you are physically safe. Some people may live in countries or be places where they're not in a physically safe home space. And it's okay to tell some people in your life, but not those until you're in a physically safe space. So I always really want to say that. And to, parents, I think really allowing our children to take their time. And even if we know ahead of time, and even if we really, really want them to just tell us, which can so often be the case, to just allow it to be their journey and to empower them to say whatever and to just hold that open space and maybe show representation, whether it's a family movie night that includes queer characters or whether it's just making it clear that this household really accepts this. And when and if ever it feels appropriate to tell me, this is a space where I'll be available.
Incredible. What an incredible story. And Mike, you are absolute living proof of something I say all of the time, that there is no such thing as a normal relationship, because every relationship has something that's made it different, that makes it unique, that makes it special. And a normal relationship is what is normal to the two individuals within that relationship and nobody else. I absolutely love your story. I've thoroughly enjoyed listening to you today. It's been wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for sharing such an incredible, inspiring story with me. And please let our listeners and viewers know where they can find out more about you, because I am sure they will want to find out more about you.
Absolutely. So you can always find me on my website at mikeiamele.com. And you can come hang out with me on Instagram at just at Mike Iamele. We're having great conversations there. I share a lot about our relationship, about sexuality, about confidence, and about really finding your purpose and feeling comfortable with who you are.
Fantastic. Mike, thank you so much.